My name is Ashley Nicole, and I am a psychiatric consultant who visits various asylums. Usually, I don't remember much about the diagnoses of my patients. However, I have a specific memory of one healthcare center that I visited during my monthly survey at St. John's Care and Recovery Center. It was January 13th, 1990. My schedule was clear: no visits, no consulting, just me and my mug of black Nescafe coffee. I looked at my watch. The time was around 10 a.m. I was sitting on the porch of my house sipping my coffee. I used to sit on the porch and breathe fresh air to clear my mind after a full week of dealing with depressing cases. As usual, I was freshening myself up when I got a call. My home telephone rang. I walked up to it and picked it up. How can I help you?
This is Henry. I was told your schedule is clear for the day, so I have appointed you to St. John's Care and Recovery Center. Be there at 12, and you can leave once your report is complete. Transportation will be at your place shortly. Thank you.
Before I could say anything, he hung up. I was annoyed, but I have bills to pay. I got ready to head towards the place, but I didn't know that this would be the most emotionally draining session of my career, and it would disturb my mental health for months. I changed into a more professional outfit, grabbed my handbag, my journal, and the keys to my house, and waited for the transport outside. After about 5 minutes or so, an old, crappy Ford Taurus with white smoke gushing out of its exhaust stopped beside me. A young boy, maybe 19 years old, stuck his head out of the window and waved his hand, shouting, "As if the car wasn't enough to piss me off, they sent this amateur, childish boy as well," I said to myself.
My name is Dylan. Nice to meet you, Ashley. Ma'am.
He said, sticking his hand out for a handshake. I was already upset because of this sudden change in plans, and Dylan was already getting on my nerves with his unprofessional behavior. I pointed to the front passenger seat and told him to sit beside the driver, and I sat in the rear seat. The driver was a creepy man, maybe in his late 40s, and the car was filled with the smell of cigarettes and smoke. I had to cover my face with a napkin, which I had perfumed earlier. The man, with a raspy voice, said,
"Are you okay, ma'am?"
"Yes," I said, almost in a mocking tone, while he looked at me through the rearview mirror. Dylan rolled down his window so the smoke could flow away. I asked Dylan how far the healthcare center was.
Ma'am, it's about 3 hours away from here.
"What?" I said. The driver, with a mocking laugh, said,
"I know a shortcut. It goes through the woods. If you want, I can take that route."
No need for that," I said.
"As you say, ma'am."
"There is no way I'm going through the woods with this jerk," I said to myself. Now, knowing that it was a 3-hour-long trip, I knew I'd have to stay a night at the asylum because the route and the driver both weren't safe enough to travel late at night. The road was surrounded by dense vegetation, and there was no place to rest or stay. Worst of all, the roads were curvy, with turns left and right, so you couldn't speed up. The car was a piece of junk. Even the radio was just making static noise. The whole ride was slow and boring. After an hour, Dylan started snoring. He had fallen asleep. After about 3 hours and 20 minutes, we finally arrived at the healthcare center.
"Here we are, peeps."
The man said, lighting a cigarette and leaning against the car.
"Hey, grab your things. I ain't going in that place. That asylum is just filled with jerks,"
he said. I was offended by this. "Why are you scared of people with special needs?" I said to him. With an arrogant expression, he said something I didn't fully understand at the time, but now I wish I had taken his advice seriously.
"First time here, huh, ma'am? I've been driving consultants to this place for 5 years. Strange thing is, no one ever leaves quite the same. This asylum has a habit of changing people. If you want to leave early, I'm here."
At that point, I thought he was just a crazy old man trying to scare my assistant and me, but he was not bluffing. Dylan was scared, not only because of the man, but also because of the location of the healthcare center. The asylum was isolated. It was far from the main town, surrounded by woods and light forest. The asylum itself looked quite nice and welcoming. In the front was a nicely maintained yard, bordered with a white wooden fence, 2 long plank tables, and a few swings. Everything was well maintained and very quiet. The only noise was the rustling of leaves when the wind swept through the trees.
What the heck was he saying?
Dylan said. At the door of the asylum stood a nice lady in black maid clothing. She might have been in her 40s. In a warm tone, she said,
"Oh, hello, Miss Ashley, and..."
"Dylan," I said.
"I'm very delighted to have you here, dear. How was your ride? Did you enjoy the greenery?"
"Thank you, yes, it was very beautiful."
"I'm sure it was. My name is Emily, and I'm the caretaker here."
Emily told us to follow her and then gave us a quick tour of the asylum. It was even nicer inside. Everything was made from oak wood with touches of teak and spruce, with warm lighting filling the spaces. Everything was polished clean. "Wow, Miss Emily, you have taken great care of the place," I said.
"Thank you, dear. This is the least I can do."
We stopped in the kitchen. "This health center is very different from others. It looks like a home, very cozy." With a wide, white smile, she said,
The last consultant who visited said the same thing.
She stared at me with an awkward smile for a few seconds. "What is that noise?" Dylan said. A constant banging noise came from a distance.
"Oh dear."
Emily said. She walked toward a room past the hallway. We both followed her. It was one of the patients with Down syndrome banging his head on the wooden wall. Emily said in a calm voice,
"Hank, dear, Hank, you'll hurt yourself. Stop."
"The walls, they talk."
Hank said. "Oh, okay, Hank, that's all right. Why don't you go play cards? Come on, let's go." Emily gave him some cards, which I guessed were made by Hank himself. He took them outside, sat on one of the benches, and started playing with them. "He is quite an enthusiastic one," I said.
"He is very innocent."
She walked us through the whole place. There were 13 rooms in total.
"Here are the keys, dear."
Emily said, handing us the keys to the rooms. In my room, there was a window from where you could see the front yard of the center and part of the forest. Through it, I saw the driver going into a small shack, maybe a storage room, away and separate from the main building. Because of the long, uncomfortable ride, I decided to lie down for a bit. After a few minutes, I remembered Henry had said to be there for only 2 hours. Not knowing the healthcare center was so far away, I decided to call him back and inform him of the situation. I walked to the kitchen where I had seen a telephone earlier and dialed the number. But it seemed my call wasn't going through. It might have been some kind of wiring issue, I thought. I told Dylan to inform Henry whenever he got the opportunity that he would have to reschedule my visits for tomorrow, since we would have to stay the night here. Then I started the survey. I called for Emily. She was sitting outside on the bench, looking at the forest. "Emily, would you help me out with the survey? I need to talk with each patient," I said.
"Of course, dear."
She said Dylan was sleeping and snoring in his room, and I didn't bother waking him up. He was no help anyway.
"There are around 40 patients."
"Ooh, that's going to take a while," I said, laughing, not knowing that this would be the first mistake I would make here. Each room was labeled with a room number. We entered room number 1. It was decorated with all kinds of pink accessories. Pink stuffed animals, pink wallpaper, pink bed sheets. This was the room of 2 twin sisters. Upon entering, I saw 2 cute girls wearing identical white dresses. They were 13 years old. Emily whispered in my ear.
"They both have autism spectrum disorder. One of them is mute, and only one is verbal. They might be older, but they are innocent like 5-year-olds."
I opened my journal and turned on the voice recorder. "Hey there, how are you, little ones?" I said in a soft voice so I wouldn't scare them. They both, looking identical, came up to me. I sat down and told Emily to wait outside the room. One of them had been drawing with crayons when I entered the room. I asked, What were you drawing? Would you like to show me? She stared at me for a second, then brought me a piece of paper. She had drawn herself in a pink dress, her sister also in a pink dress. In between them was another girl, tall, wearing white clothes, with red crayon strokes on her mouth and hands, black eyes, and black hair. Who is this? Is this your friend? I asked. The other girl looked at her, then at me.
She is Lisa.
Oh, is she a good friend? I asked. The other girl nodded. I patted her head. Where is she now? I asked. The mute girl pointed at the corner of the ceiling. I turned and looked in the direction she pointed, just a blank white ceiling corner. I looked at her, confused, and my smile faded. Both of them started smiling wider and wider. Even as a psychiatric consultant who had visited many asylums, severe autism spectrum disorder like this was very rare. I smiled back and asked, "How do you feel here? Do you like it?" One of the girls replied.
Like home.
I documented the conversation and exited the room. I took their drawing with me for documentation.
They are lovely, aren't they?
Sure, I said with a hesitant tone. But it started to make sense after a few more hours as I kept consulting more and more patients. This was the second strange case in this asylum. In my career, I had never seen any patient behave this strangely, but I told myself that everyone has a different personality. By this point, I had consulted more than 20 patients and was heading towards the last one. We entered the room of a girl about 15 to 16 years old. Her face looked tired, like she hadn't been sleeping well. I had seen most of the patients in the healthcare center playing or watching TV throughout the day, but I hadn't seen her at all during that time. I told Emily to wait outside the room. Emily seemed hesitant to leave at first, but she did anyway. I asked her name, and she replied,
Rose.
"That's a cute name," I said. She smiled back. I asked her how long she had been here. Emily had told me she had chronic schizophrenia. As we talked, she started to zone out more and more. I felt bad for her, such a nice girl suffering from this mental illness, and at such a young age. "Miss Emily." She didn't reply. I called her name as I walked to the kitchen and found her washing dishes. "There you are."
Oh, you were calling me. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I can't hear from my left ear. The eardrum is ruptured.
"That's okay," I said. "How did that happen?" I asked Emily.
Oh, it was an accident.
She paused, then explained. She had been in bed, partially asleep. She usually locked all the doors after bedtime, so the patients wouldn't sneak out at night. But that time, she had forgotten to lock one door, room number 1. She remembered hearing chuckles and giggles. The twins had been playing in her room, but because she was asleep, she hadn't noticed them. Then one of the girls screamed, right into her left ear. The sudden, intentional scream ruptured her eardrum. At first, it felt deafeningly loud, but then everything began to sound muffled, like voices heard underwater. Blood dripped down from her ear onto her pillow. The headache that followed was so severe that she couldn't get up to look for the twins. When she finally woke, they were sleeping from the exhaustion of playing. What Emily told me was very bizarre. I didn't know what to say after hearing it. I asked a few more questions about Rose's condition. Emily told me that Rose's family had abandoned her. "Why would someone do that?" I said to Emily. What she told me next was something beyond the most terrifying nightmare any parent could imagine. This was the moment I began to understand what the driver had meant, and why he had been so reluctant to enter the daycare. "How long have you been here?" I asked her. She said it had been almost a decade working here. I asked her if she ever felt alone or isolated. She replied that she had put great effort into this place and that all the patients were like family to her. After finishing tea and chatting for a while, we resumed consulting patients. To finish the work more quickly, I woke Dylan up. "Make yourself useful," I said, and threw a voice recorder and the journal onto his bed. After a few more patients, it was Hank's turn. A strange and unsettling screeching sound was coming from his room. I opened the door and saw him scratching the walls with his nails. The scratching had caused the nails on his pinky finger, index finger, and thumb to break off. Blood stains marked the walls. Emily rushed in, calling his name.
Hank, dear!
She grabbed his arm and tried to comfort him, but he acted like nothing had happened and started to giggle while looking at me.
He doesn't usually do this,
Emily said, her voice cracking. I leaned towards Hank. At this point, Dylan was visibly shaken. I gestured to him to pay attention to the documentation. What happened, Hank? I asked him. The walls. They scream. I looked at him. His reaction didn't match his words. It seemed like he liked it, like he enjoyed what he knew. He might have been referring to the screeching sound the wall made while he was scratching it with his nails. Maybe he liked it. I don't know. Nothing really made sense at that moment. After this, I checked 6 more patients.
Would you like some refreshments, dear?
Emily asked me. I said sure. She told me to wait outside in the yard. I sat at the table outside, and Emily came with a tray and 2 cups of tea. It was 5 p.m. and the sun was setting. While sitting outside, Emily zoned out, lost in thought. Emily, I said. She didn't notice. Emily!
Yes, Miss Ashley?
About the Rose, you told me that her family abandoned her. Do you know why?
Rose had come to the door of the daycare, dirty and hollow-eyed from crying. Oh, poor baby. Where are your parents? Rose told me in a cracking voice that they were lost. I asked if she knew their home address or any contact information so she could call them. Rose began to cry, so I took her inside. I gave her a glass of water. Rose was wearing a bracelet with a number on it. I called the number, but no one picked up. It was getting dark outside, so I decided to take care of Rose until her parents could be found. I kept calling the number until someone finally picked up. I was overwhelmed with relief. I found your number on Rose's bracelet. I was trying to call you, but your The line went dead. I was stunned. How could someone abandon their own daughter? I had noticed Rose's strange behavior, but quickly understood that Rose likely had a condition, given my experience working in healthcare centres. Once Rose was comfortable, I asked if she had any memory of her home, anything else that might help. Something clicked in Rose's expression, and she handed me her medical ID. The medical ID had a great deal of useful information. I wrote down her full name and other details quickly, contacted the hospital that had issued the ID, and managed to obtain a mailing address for the family, though the hospital informed her that the parents had requested not to be contacted. Despite that, I wrote them heartfelt letters every day, telling them what Rose had done, what she had been taught, hoping their hearts might soften. I wrote to them daily, until the day they finally wrote back.
Hello, this is Rose's mother. I know what you're thinking. What kind of parents leave their own daughter, knowing all of her mental conditions? You must hate us for this, and I don't blame you. But if you were in our place, you would have done the same thing. We loved her. Her condition made her innocent. Until that day. Of all the mistakes I have made, that day haunts me the most. I could never forgive myself for what happened. We left Rose and her younger brother Brian, who was 3 or 4 years old, alone at home. I told her to take care of him and not to open the gate for strangers. I kissed her on the forehead and left with Susie, her younger sister. We are not from a wealthy background. I had to work 2 jobs just to afford milk and diapers for Susie and Brian. That day was especially tough. I'll be back in 7 hours, I said to Rose, and left. I knew Rose was a caring sister and that she loved her brother. But that day, I don't know what happened to her. Something changed her. I had noticed that her schizophrenia episodes were becoming more intense, but I didn't take it seriously enough. I was too busy. I didn't have the time. After a long day of work, I returned home with Susie. Upon entering, the room was filled with a strange quietness. Rose, honey, Brian? No one replied. Then I heard Susie scream from the kitchen. I rushed there and saw her sitting in the corner, knees pulled to her chest, just screaming and crying. On the kitchen countertop was Rose, arms crossed, head on her knees, crying and weeping. The white countertop was splattered with blood. I went to Rose first. "What happened, honey? What happened?" She didn't reply, so I went to Susie and picked her up. I asked her what had happened. She pointed to the corner of the countertop, a small section that remained after a cabinet had been removed. There was a blood trail there as well. I followed the trail to see what was there and why there was blood in the kitchen. I was already exhausted and overwhelmed, and the desperate screams of Susie blurred my mind. I had forgotten something very important, which I was about to discover in that corner. I found the headless body of Brian. His small head was at the other corner of the room, completely separated from his helpless body. The white shirt I had dressed him in before leaving was now soaked in dried blood. The most terrifying part was that I had always hidden the knives and sharp objects before leaving. So she used a butter knife, a dull butter knife, which I found in the sink covered in blood. That day, everything changed.
That was the letter, Ashley. It broke me. But I could not let Rose be left alone again, the way her parents had left her. So I decided to take care of her for as long as I am alive.
I sat there in silence, my cup of tea gone cold in my hands. I didn't know what to say. Everything Emily had told me, the twins, Hank, and now this, was starting to stitch itself together into something I didn't want to understand. That's when we heard it. A wet, tearing sound coming from Hank's room. Emily's face went pale. She whispered,
He should be asleep by now.
We both rushed toward his door. Got there first. Hank was sitting in the middle of the floor, his bandages unraveled and soaked through. He had chewed through the gauze on his own hand. His fingers, the ones with the broken nails, were pressed flat against the wooden wall, and he was still smiling, dragging what was left of them across the wood, humming to himself. The wall was slick and dark. There was so much blood that it had pooled slightly on the floorboards beneath him, and he didn't so much as flinch. He looked up at me, delighted, like a child showing off a finished drawing. The walls, he said, giggling. They scream so nice now. I don't remember screaming. I remember the sound leaving my body before I understood I had made it. My legs went weak. I stumbled back into the hallway and pressed my hand over my mouth, my whole body shaking. I had seen terrible things in this line of work, but nothing like this. Nothing this deliberate. Nothing that smiled at me while doing it. Emily rushed past me into the room, murmuring soothing words to Hank, wrapping his ruined hands in a towel with the same calm, practiced tenderness she'd shown all day, as if this happened every week, as if it were normal. I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing. The letter, the twins, the wall, Hank, all of it colliding at once. I needed to leave. Now. Not tomorrow, not after the report, now. I steadied my voice as best I could and walked back toward the kitchen where Emily had followed me, her hands still stained. Emily, I said, my voice cracking despite my best effort to sound calm. I just got an emergency call. Family emergency. I need to leave right now. Tonight. I'm so sorry. I'll have Henry send someone else to finish the report. I watched her face. The moment the words left my mouth, something in her expression folded in on itself. Her smile didn't disappear. It just slid sideways, wrong, like it no longer fit her face. And then she began to cry. Not the way people normally cry. There was no buildup, no trembling lip. 1 second she was still, and the next, tears were pouring down her cheeks in total silence. Her mouth stretched open in something between a smile and a sob, her shoulders shaking in short power. It didn't sound like crying either. It sounded like something trying to remember how crying was supposed to sound and getting it almost right.
You can't leave. No one leaves early, dear.
She said, still smiling through the tears, her voice thick and wet. That was enough for me. I didn't wait for Dylan. I didn't wait for anything. I grabbed my journal and my bag and I ran. Out through the kitchen, out the back door, past the yard with its neat white fence and its swings creaking gently in the evening wind, toward the tree line where I remembered the road curving in from the woods. Behind me, I heard Emily's strange, hitching, not quite sobs turn into something closer to laughter, and I didn't look back to see which one it actually was. I ran until my lungs burned, until the asylum's lights were just a faint gold smear behind me through the trees. I found the dirt road eventually, and I kept walking along it in the dark, my heart hammering, until hours later, the headlights of a passing farm truck finally found me stumbling along the shoulder, half out of my mind, and the driver pulled over. I never went back for my report. I never went back for Dylan either, though I've spent 30 years since telling myself there was nothing more I could have done for him, and 30 years failing to fully believe it. I called Henry the next morning and resigned on the spot. He didn't ask why. I've always wondered if that meant he already knew. I quit consulting entirely a few months later.